So turning now to a game changer for many parents in the fight against COVID-19. Young children ages 5 to 11 have started receiving Pfizer's vaccine after the CDC approved the shot, saying the benefits outweigh any risks, especially ahead of the busy winter holiday season. Earlier on CBS Mornings, CDC Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky weighed in on the latest developments.
This is just really exciting news that we now have vaccine recommendations for 28 million children between the ages of 5 to 11. We at the advisory committee reviewed a lot of data yesterday. We looked at the risks of disease, the risks of death, of hospitalizations, of long COVID among children, and importantly, we looked at how well these vaccines work.
So here to break down all of this for us is Dr. Julie Morita. She is the Executive Vice President of the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and a former member of the Biden Administration Transition Advisory Board. So thanks for joining us. So, here's the thing, Doctor. It's one thing to make the vaccine available. It's another thing to make parents comfortable with the idea. And so I have a few questions for you that, may do that. We know now about the dosing that it's going to be 1/3 of what the adult dose is. Okay, fine, makes sense. They're children. But now we're also learning when it comes to adults that many of us may be in line for a booster shot. And so there are questions about just how long the vaccine is able to protect at least adults. Could the dosing at all have an impact on, the level of protection that children have?
Morning, Anne-Marie. Thanks so much for having me today. That's a great question. I think the dosing that is recommended for children is 1/3 of the dose that adults get. And the reason for that is because children's immune systems are much stronger and they give really robust immune reactions to vaccines. And so they don't need as high a doses as adults do. On top of that, we want to minimize any kind of side effects that they might actually have. So the smaller doses are really necessary. We didn't actually have a good sense of when adults would need to get booster doses until we tracked them and monitored their immune responses over time. And so the same thing will have to happen for children in terms of monitoring their immune responses over time. And we'll know later in months, maybe in years, whether or not a booster is actually necessary. But at this point, it's too early to be talking about booster doses for children.
So, Dr. Morita, one of the things that some parents were concerned about was the dosage as well as needles. I mean, little kids are afraid of needles. I mean, I'm a big kid and I'm afraid of needles.
Not just little kids, Vlad.
Exactly. I'm a well-known fear of needles. So for kids, there's going to be a smaller needle and different packaging. And the CDC director, Dr. Walensky, addressed this on CBS Mornings earlier. I want to play what she had to say.
All vaccines, we have different doses. With all medications, we actually have different doses. And so what they've done in these clinical trials is to look at dose de-escalation to make sure that the younger children are getting the right dose, both to balance the effectiveness and make sure that it's actually working well, and to make sure there were no side effects. And they absolutely hit that sweet spot at this dose.
So this is my 10th grade science brain, and I barely passed science in 10th grade, wondering if the smaller dosage size, Dr. Morita, could affect the level of immune response in children.
Yeah, I mean, I think what the trials have done have really showed and demonstrated what a strong immune response the kids had after the vaccines were administered. And so I think that it's this balancing that Dr. Walensky mentioned in terms of side effects, immune response. And what they did is they hit the sweet spot, which is a high immune response with less side effects. And so I think that we'll have to watch over time to see if additional doses are necessary. I mean, I think it's what you point out that children are getting administered vaccines, but kids are actually used to getting vaccines more than adults are, because when they're going into the doctor offices in the first 5 years of life, they get vaccines almost in every single visit. And so to get vaccines, children are more used to it than adults.
Yeah, and we did point out yesterday, Vlad, that kids get lollipops after their vaccine, and all we got was a card.
Exactly.
A very important card, but it was just a lollipop would have been helpful too. So listen, the focus is though on the hesitancy that parents may have. So I want to talk to you about some poll numbers. A poll from the Kaiser Family Foundation shows that 27% of parents say that they will vaccinate their kids right away. 30% say they will definitely not vaccinate their kids at all, and 33% say that they're going to wait to see how it's working before making a decision. So hopefully we're all still connected. I'm not sure what that sound meant, but what do you make of these numbers?
So when I reflect on these numbers, I think back to how the public opinion was prior to the adult vaccine rollout. And what we saw at that point too was there's a big group of people who really wanted to wait and see what happened with the vaccine before they wanted to roll up their sleeves and get it. And so what we're seeing right now is there's a significant portion of the population who wants to wait and see. But there's also a lot of people who are eager to get vaccinated, and that's really important. What was also part of that survey, which I think is really important to lift up, is that in addition to among the people who are eager to get vaccinated, there are also people who are worried about not being able to get time off from their workplaces or not being able to afford the cost of the vaccine. So there are significant equity issues still out there where people are concerned about not being able to get the time they need to take their children to get vaccinated or to recover from side effects. And so paid leave is just a critical thing for us to have in place so that everyone can take advantage of it. Until then, it's really important that there be clinics that are after hours, on weekends, easily accessible so that parents don't have to worry about losing their jobs, that they can actually take their kids to get vaccinated.
So as you know, doctor, not everyone has the same access to health care. What are some of the health equity challenges facing the effort to immunize children?
I think some of the health equity challenges are those that I just raised up. I think in terms of people being afraid that they won't be able to take the time off. When we think about the pandemic, you can see who was affected most, who ended up in the hospital most, who ended up dying most. It was our low-income communities. It was our communities of color. And what we want to make sure is that our children that are in these communities, in these households, really have access to the vaccines, so that it's really critical that the health departments, the pharmacies, the doctor offices really work with their communities, regardless of their insurance status, regardless of the incomes or where they live, to make sure these vaccines are really equally accessible and easy to get so that all children are protected.
All right, Dr. Julie Morita, thank you so much. Always great to have you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.